Hey everyone, welcome into the latest edition of the Pokescast, production of the cast for Star-Tribune and Pokes Authority. I am Davis Potter, Wyoming beat writer for the Star-Tribune, and I am joined by my partner, who always joins me each week that we record this, our managing editor and former Wyoming beatnik, Brandon Foster. Brandon, word.
Hey Davis, I've got some, since we didn't record last week, I've got some UW thoughts all stored up. I often, sometimes think, hey, I want to tweet something about Wyoming athletics, and it's like, no, just save it for the Pokescast and get some original content out there. But I want to spend the entirety of today's episode talking about the Wyoming football tweets in which they recreated Criterion collection covers to mock them up for spring football. I don't know who that's for, except it's definitely for me. I'm very excited about the fact that someone took the time to do like really solid photoshops of Wyoming football players and make it look like somewhat niche indie like film. Like I don't know like what the percentage of Wyoming film fans who are into both, or Wyoming football fans who are into like Fellini films and stuff. But I think the moral of the story is everyone is really bored during spring football.
Hey, well, maybe that this is a latest example of a school embracing personal branding. Who knows?
It's not the brand I saw coming, but it's important to know your niche. So,
yeah. But when you say you have thoughts, do you actually mean thoughts or hot takes?
Oh, what's the difference these days? No, I was just like, I would love an oral history if you have time on where that idea came from and how much time they spent putting. Like they look really nice. I don't know. Like if anyone's not familiar with the Criterion collection, it's like this like very hipster thing where. This company makes like re-releases, artsy movies with very thorough like booklets of interviews with the producers or whatever, and they have like a new design cover, and they did this for football, and it's just like, I really don't know why, but I love it.
Yeah,
I don't know why they did it, but I'm glad they did.
You would know more about that than me, but. Yeah, it's good to be back after the 1 week hiatus. By the way, my body hates me right now after doing this move, which really was like a 2 week whole ordeal because I spent like the last 2 weeks of April basically going back and forth between my old place and my new place in Laramie. And I hired a moving company to like help with all the bigger stuff, but like anything that I could possibly move by myself, I did. And I'm feeling the effects of that still right now. So, but I
don't envy you.
No, it's every time I go through a move, I'm reminded about just how much I hate that process. But glad it's over now. But Brandon, Wyoming spring football is about to wrap up. They've got one more practice on Thursday afternoon before holding their spring game on Saturday. So we're gonna preview the spring game, maybe what we expect to see out at War Memorial Stadium this weekend. But first, some quick basketball news concerning Wyoming. This has not been officially announced yet, but John Rothstein of CBS Sports reported earlier this week that Wyoming is going to be part of the Diamond Head Classic field, and that's a tournament that's played out in Hawaii around Christmas time. So Wyoming is one of, I think, 8 teams. The rest of the field, per Rothstein, is Stanford, BYU, Northern Iowa, New Mexico State, South Florida, Liberty, and Hawaii, which is obviously the host. But my first thought on that is if you're a Wyoming fan, probably rooting for a Wyoming-BYU matchup, right? Because I hear that rivalry is pretty tame between the two schools. But also looking forward to our editor, Josh Wolfson, finding the money in our travel budget to send me out there. So
I just want John to tweet during that tournament something along the lines of, "This is November," or whenever. I'm not sure when it's being held.
Well, Christmas is usually in December, Brandon.
Oh, I missed that part. Well,
Yeah.
It's a multiple month long affair at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's sort of the first bit of a non-conference news regarding Wyoming's basketball schedule for next season. Of course, they, if you all remember, they were supposed to play Arizona in a non-conference game this past season, but that was rescheduled for next season. And then also Noah Reynolds, the point guard that had committed to Wyoming a couple weeks back, has officially signed. So he is now officially in the fold for them, point guard out of Peoria, Illinois. Late high school addition to Jeff Linder's 2021 recruiting class. And I think, as we mentioned on the last podcast we did, could very well be the replacement for Marcus Williams there at the point. So that puts them at 12 scholarships for next season, which is one short of the 13 scholarship limit. So I know they've reportedly targeted some other guards to fill that spot, but that's where basketball is right now. But spring football, let's talk a little bit about maybe what to expect in this spring game on Saturday, which I think better question might be what will we actually see? Because I'm not sure really maybe what to expect, because obviously the big storyline is the offense, and I guess how new or how different it might look under the first-year coordinator, Tim Polasek. Of course, Wyoming has been very hush-hush about that. It was funny, we talked to Braden Smith, Wyoming senior safety, on Tuesday, and he just mentioned in passing that there were some different things the offense was doing, in terms of the defense going up against them every day and what they're seeing from them in practice. And I followed up with him, and I was like, so are you saying like some different formations, or how much different is it? And, he sort of caught himself and started like looking around the room and was like, yeah, I think I've already said too much, which, I mean, he didn't even really say anything. He just said there were some different things, which I think that goes without saying that some things are going to be different in this offense. But yeah, everybody's still being very tight-lipped about this offense. And, I think it's going to be interesting on Saturday, because do I expect Wyoming to throw out the kitchen sink? No. Spring games are notorious for being very bland, very vanilla in what, teams are willing to show. And I think even more so in Wyoming's case, when you're breaking in a new offense, I mean, you're not going to put a bunch of stuff out there, for other teams to see before you've even played a real game. But I do think it's going to be somewhere in the middle of, showing everything and being as bland as spring games usually are, just because, I mean, you think about it, this is going to be the first real normal atmosphere that's been inside War Memorial Stadium since probably the end of the 2019 season. Fans are going to be allowed to attend. There's not going to be any face covering or social distancing regulations. Now, the school is encouraging those, but they're not requiring face masks or social distancing inside the stadium. And this is really the first time, this football team is going to play in front of, a crowd bigger than the 4,000 or 5,000 that were allowed in attendance during the regular season last year. And so I think, when you consider that fact, and you also probably, if you're the coaching staff, you want to see how these players go out and execute some of these plays and formations that you've been practicing for the last 4 weeks. You want to see, how they execute them in the first, I guess, quote-unquote game setting that they're going to play, with this new offense. So I think you're going to see them open it up just a little bit. But like I said, I wouldn't expect anything crazy in terms of the amount of plays and formations that they're going to show out there this weekend.
Yeah. I find it a little ironic that they're not going to be enforcing social distancing, because I feel like, with the exception of, Georgia and maybe a couple major SEC schools, like, spring football crowds are the definition of social distancing. Like, there's never, it's not like it's, no matter where you're at, it's not like it's a full crowd. But yeah, I think it'll definitely be interesting to see what they do show. I know we've talked a lot about kind of coaches' paranoia and how, they don't want to give away anything they don't have to give away, right? And especially when you're reworking an offense, it's nice to have that element of surprise come fall. At the same time, if you're working on it all spring on installing that new offense, there's a trade-off there, right, between how vanilla you can keep it during this opportunity to have a scrimmage. What are the pros and cons? The pros of, keeping that secrecy up, but the cons of, maybe not working all the things you've been working on all spring. So I would imagine they will show us something new, even if it's not, I'm sure the secret super duper trick plays or something they're not going to show us, but you would imagine it'll have to look a little different if the indications you've been getting are spot on as far as things being changed up. I guess it's also possible that the bar has not been super high for what constitutes different in the offense over the last decade.
That's a good point. So
maybe any little wrinkle does look fascinating, but yeah, I don't know. I think it'll be interesting to see because what is really the pro to, I guess, one game of preparation, right? To keeping everything locked up. Once you play one game of football, everybody's going to know what your offense consists of anyway. So, are you really going to miss out on opportunities to practice this installation just for the benefit of not losing to Brent Vegan? Like, isn't that their season opener? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure they really don't want to lose that game, but come on, show us something.
Yeah. And also the fact that, again, you're at, and Craig Bowl and even the school they're encouraging fans to come out there because, like I said, this is as close to normal as they've had around there since the 2019 season. They want fans in the stands. They want people to come out and see. And I don't think you're going to sit there for the last 3 or 4 weeks asking fans to come out only to just turn around and run on first and second down, throw a slant, and then punt. I just that would not elicit much excitement among the fan base if you just go out there and everything looks the exact same as it's looked the last 3 or 4 seasons. But and also you do have some position battles still going on. Obviously the big one being quarterback. But also, I think some other ones to watch on Saturday are the outside linebacker spot, which, according to players and coaches that we've talked to this spring, Easton Gibbs is making a push at that outside linebacker spot. Charles Hicks is obviously the incumbent there, but, Craig Bowl said, that's not a done deal yet. And, it's interesting because you look at the production from last season. Easton is their third linebacker, their backup linebacker at both linebacker spots. He finished third on the team in tackles. I think he had nearly twice as many tackles as Charles Hicks did, despite Charles being a starter for most of the year. Now, Easton started the very last game against Boise State when Charles was hurt, but that's going to be an intriguing position battle. Safety is another one with Braden Smith and Rome Weber, who's back from his opt-out. And that's interesting because, most fans will recall that those two were duking it out 2 years ago at that free safety spot before Rome won that job. But Craig Bowl said earlier this week that Braden Smith has sort of separated himself at that position and is likely going to remain the starter there. Some other notes, too. Aiden Eberhardt looks like he's going to be the primary punt returner. Wyoming needs a new one with Dante Crow transferring out. Looks like Aiden's going to fill in there. And then Craig Bowl mentioned Titus Swin, the running back, as a potential candidate to return kicks this year. So that's going to be interesting. You can see him pulling some double duty. But, Brendan, I do want to talk a little bit more about the quarterback competition. Because people have responded to me when on Twitter, when I've tweeted out articles or even put out tweets just giving my thoughts on quarterback competition, and they've said, because the word from Craig Bowl and really anybody that we've talked to this spring has been that this thing is a really good competition. I think Craig actually used the phrase razor thin earlier this week to describe how close the competition is between Sean Chambers and Levi Williams. But I've had people come out and ask me, or say that they're not sure if they really believe that, and that they just be coach speak. And look, I think it's a fair thought because Sean, when he's been healthy, has been their starting quarterback. I mean, the only reason that he has never been a starting quarterback for them is because he's been on the sideline hurt with those 3 season-ending injuries. And what's your take on where this thing stands? And do you believe it's really as close as as Craig and some of these other coaches and players have been saying this spring.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up because otherwise I was going to ask you, should we be worried about the fact that it is apparently so close? Because, from the on-field standpoint the last couple of years, it doesn't seem like it should be all that close. Like, I don't know. If he can stay healthy, I think as we've talked about, it feels like it should be Sean's job to lose. As we've, I think, discussed pretty in-depth in past episodes, there is a little finessing maybe you have to do, especially in this situation where the reality is, you want to have more than one quarterback ready to go, considering how many injuries they've had at that position in recent history. And you want to not, maybe you want to boost up the ego of the guy who's going to be in second place a little bit. I'm sure that could factor in a little bit, but I don't know. I mean, I think it's one thing for Bull to say it, and I think it's very possible as like paranoid as I'm gonna sound now that like there's been a brief discussion of like, hey, let's keep this in house. Don't be telling the media, it's Sean's job. I don't know, but when you start to hear it from like other people on the team, that's when you start to probably think that there's something to it. And I know Sean's returning from an injury and all that, and that might be slowing him down, but so is Levi, if I'm not mistaken. But I don't know. I guess there's some context for this in recent years, like not to criticize the staff too much. I mean, I understand that this is nothing unique about Wyoming, but all of spring and fall camp leading up to the 2017 season, it was like, okay, Nick Smith and Tyler Vanderwall are neck and neck. They're just so close we can barely decide. Maybe Tyler's a little hair ahead, and then like everyone knew it was going to be Tyler, and then it was Tyler, and like same thing with Josh Allen. Is he going to go pro? That whole 2017. Sorry, I said 2017. I meant 2018 for that last comparison. But the whole last Josh Allen season, right? Everyone's like, we'll see. But then come the end of the year when he actually announced, it's like, we all knew he was going pro. So. There's a coyness, especially with the quarterback position. I think more so than anywhere else on the field. It's a position that confidence matters, and I wonder as well. I obviously haven't seen, and sounds like you haven't really got to see too much yourself, but anything in person to weigh in on this competition. But I would. If it actually is that close, I would almost be a little worried. I guess on the flip side, maybe you can be very encouraged by what Levi's showing as far as progress. But as far as on-field stuff goes, it just feels like it should be Sean's job.
Yeah, no, you bring up a good point about the coyness. And look, I'm not going to sit here and say I don't believe what Craig Bohl is telling us about this competition. And again, as you mentioned, we're not out there watching them practice. I mean, everything is still, all our access is still virtual. I mean, the media is limited to post-practice Zoom interviews. And that's it. So, we don't get to go out there and see, how they're performing on the field and what they're doing. I mean, our first chance to do that will be the same time that all the fans that come out to the stadium on Saturday see them. And, we'll all sort of see it together. But there is a tendency for coaches to think, if I come out here and single out one guy as the leader in this competition or the winner of this job, then you're going to lose engagement from the other players of that position, right? Like they're not going to stay engaged. They're not going to practice as hard. And if Wyoming has shown us anything over the last 2 or 3 years, it's that you need depth at every position, particularly at quarterback. The most important position on the field. So, that very well could be Craig's way of thinking, hey, I need to sort of toe the line here and say that this competition is still wide open so that Levi and the rest of the quarterbacks, stay engaged. But here's my thoughts on the situation. I think if everything is equal, I still think Sean Chambers is your starting quarterback, simply because of his skill set and his unique running ability. Because, I mean, I've written and said this before, but I don't think there's another quarterback in the Mountain West that has the ability with his legs to just break down a defense in an instant the way Sean Chambers does. And that's part of his game. It will always be part of his game. And and it's lethal, and you can't just discredit that at all, because they're still going to call design runs for the quarterbacks. They're still going to use quarterbacks' legs in this offense. But I do think you're at a point now in this offense with the way that the passing game has been so ineffective the last handful of years, where you might have to say we have to put much more of an emphasis on who's going to be the better passer, or who at least is the most consistent passer. Now, again, everything being equal, I think Sean Chambers is your starting quarterback. So I think, in order for Levi to win this job, I think, his accuracy, his touch, his precision, his performance in the passing, it would just have to be head and shoulders above what Sean is doing. And from talking to Craig and other coaches and players this spring, it doesn't sound like that's been the case. At least there's been no indication given that, hey, that Levi or Sean is really, just head and shoulders above where the other guy is. I mean, every time we've asked about the quarterback position, we get the same answer that, hey, this thing it's neck and neck, and, it's been a really good quarterback competition. Again, is that lip service at this point? I don't know. But I do think you're at a point where the consistency in the passing game has to weigh in more heavily. Now, Craig has said in the past that, it's not going to be the only factor in determining who ultimately wins that job. But, I mean, that's the one facet of this team, of this program's game that is missing, right? I mean, you have one of the top rushing attacks in the Mountain West. You have at least the last 2 or 3 years, you've had a championship caliber defense. You just haven't been able to throw the ball. And, I think it comes to at a certain point, it's like, okay, yeah, Sean Chambers' ability to run is great. Levi can run too. He's not a stiff back there. He's shown that. So you know what those two guys can do on the ground. But if you still can't get to a point where you can keep defenses honest and they consistently continue to stack the box with 7, 8, 9 guys, I mean, at a certain point, you're not going to have anywhere to run, and it's going to be irrelevant. So, I mean, I do think, and Craig has talked about that throughout the spring, that obviously this passing game has been an emphasis. They continue to work on it. It's been mixed reviews, according to him, as to how the quarterbacks have performed. He said in their first scrimmage a couple of weeks ago that it was one of their worst days of the spring, just in terms of their accuracy. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you could maybe look at it as a concern, the fact that, neither one of them has really separated, and it sounds like the accuracy and the touch and just their overall performance in the passing game hasn't necessarily been where Craig Bowl and his coaching staff hoped it would be. But you also have to remember that, again, Sean's been away for a year. I mean, he wasn't going to come back this spring and light the world on fire. I mean, he's been out of action, since the beginning of October. And, he only played 3 snaps in that Nevada game before that injury. So it's going to take him a little while. And I think just in terms of them as more polished products, I still think they're not there yet in terms of the passing game. I think it is going to take a little bit of time for them to make another jump and progress in this offense in terms of what they do in the passing game. But I do think you may be getting to a point where, we have to value this more rather than necessarily just being a running quarterback. We've got to have that added dimension in our game, and whoever can do that better. And I think in Levi's case, I think it would have to be significantly better, but I do think that that's something that you have to put more of an emphasis on going forward in this offense.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. That the passing game is probably what is getting evaluated mostly, not just because it's the area they need to take a bigger step forward in, but also it kind of aligns with what you're able to do in spring too, right? Like Sean's probably just as good of a runner as he's been. They're also probably not spending a whole lot of time having him run, quarterback keepers up the middle in practice, and Craig Bowles not coming out and saying, yeah, Sean's looking amazing. He broke 8 tackles today. Like, they're probably keeping the hands off the quarterbacks, and I'm sure that they're running those plays, but his chances to excel in the ways that we've seen him excel probably more frequently with those runs may not be what is under the microscope right now in spring. But yeah, I think I also wonder if there's the part you mentioned about the new offense, we really don't know and won't know for a while exactly what it is that they're going to ask of these quarterbacks now. And it's possible that that aligns more with, one quarterback or the other, and that's affecting the horse race there. And then I also think, I don't think it's out of the question. I don't know if they've talked about this, but that both guys could still see snaps, or that they could set aside a drive or two here and there for Levi, even if Sean is the starter, or I guess even vice versa. If I remember right, in 2019 down the stretch, Levi was getting, some plays here and there, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but to me that was almost weird to see, because I feel like teams that I've seen, when they want to kind of break in a younger quarterback who's not the starter, they tend to just set one drive, in the third quarter aside for them or something like that. But if I remember right, Wyoming was, switching off plays with the guys mid-drive. So, I mean, I don't know if they talked about that, but it's possible. Obviously you have a capital S starter at quarterback more so than you do at almost any other position, but I don't know that doesn't mean that they, if it really is close, that we couldn't see both of them.
Yeah, and at the end of that 2019 season that you're referring to, Sean was hurt by that point, and then Tyler Vanderbilt just wasn't very effective.
Okay, was that when they were okay?
Yeah, it was a Colorado State game where Levi made his college debut. For a while, they sort of went back and forth almost by series, rotating those guys, but at the end, it was Levi that took over that as the full-time starter late in that game. But again, he was mainly a runner, and some of that is attributed to the fact that he is a true freshman being thrown into his first college game. So I mean, I'm sure the playbook wasn't very extensive for him at that point. But Craig has said that or you said at the beginning of the spring that there was a chance that both of those guys probably could still play. He said that would be evaluated throughout the course of the spring, but earlier this week, it didn't sound like that was going to be the case, because he said that the plan is still to decide on a starter at the end of spring, and that the quarterbacks will still be evaluated in fall camp. But he said it's not an either-or situation right now, and he doesn't want to play musical chairs at that position. So it sounds like whoever they end up firmly deciding as the starter, whether that be the end of spring or during fall camp at some point, if something changes between the end of spring and then, sounds like they're going to pick their guy and stick with him. At least as long as either one of them produces. Now, if you get out there the first 2 or 3 games of the season and everything, it looks like it has the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, at some point you may have to make a change. But another reason I think the passing game has to be more of an emphasis when it comes to the quarterback position is because you don't want to use Sean and Levi as much as runners as you have had in the past, right? Given their injury history. If you can't throw the ball consistently, well then that makes you have use your quarterback's legs more, because that you sit there and think, well, that's really the only thing that they're consistently effective at is using their legs. But with a guy like Sean, who's had season-ending injuries throughout his career, and even Levi in the last season when he banged up his shoulder, you need to start limiting the amount of hits that they take. If you look up in the middle of next season and whoever is the starter, if Sean's out there running it 14, 15 times a game, or Levi's out there running it 10 or 11 times a game, that probably a red flag and a big concern, because that probably means that they're still struggling to get things going consistently in the passing game. But you need those quarterbacks to develop and turn into more consistent passers so that you don't expose them in the running game nearly as much as they have been in the last few years.
Yeah, and I think I could definitely see the appeal too of really having a clean demarcation of starter and backup if you're really trying to make strides in the passing game to increase your quarterback's confidence as a passer and have that consistency and that repetition. That's something that is going to take work to get the passing game where they want it. And it might be beneficial for the guy to just know, hey, I can throw some incompletions, I can throw some picks without having to worry about having a short leash. That could be helpful if you're trying to really prioritize making strides in the passing game. I think it'll be interesting though if things don't look immediately improved, how quickly we start to wonder, when's the other guy going to see some snaps, and how long is that leash going to be if it takes a while? Because it very well could take a while to, everything that you work on in spring and fall is all well and good, but doing it on the field is another thing. So, I can definitely see the appeal there too of maybe not wanting to mess with the musical chair situation.
Yeah, and that's why I think this spring game won't be so vanilla for these quarterbacks, because you are bringing these guys back into the fold, into the mix, coming off their injuries last year, and you want to give these guys some confidence going into the offseason. So I think you'll see them throw some passes and see how they perform in a pseudo game like setting. Because you obviously want to see how these guys perform when the bullets are somewhat live, and who's gonna perform better in that situation, and also just getting in sync with a new offense that everybody is learning. So, and also it's regardless of who ultimately wins that job, you want both of those quarterbacks feeling good about themselves heading into the summer and heading into fall camp, because as we've seen, whoever the backup ends up being is just one play away. So I think we'll see a little bit of something on Saturday. I don't expect a snooze fest out there. But Brandon, I think we can go ahead and wrap it up there. Do you have anything you want to add before we get out of here?
I have some pressing spring game questions for you.
Go ahead.
One, is there a swag sale this year?
I don't know what that is.
Okay, so they must not do it every year. I think in 2017 or 18 they did it last, where they had a bunch of the leftover jerseys and stuff from Wyoming football teams that they sold, and they had a big event in the why am I spacing out? In one of the athletic facilities, and it was absolutely packed there, which maybe is another reason why they're not doing it this year indoors. But that's in my experience with spring games in Wyoming, a great way to get a bunch of people to the games, because people were just buying trash bags full of old jerseys. I got one of their 2015 jerseys before they switched over. So yeah, I was just curious if that would be drawing the fans out, because I assume you can't do it every year or you'll run out of swag to sell. But they people love that. So hopefully they'll do another one next year. Two, have they talked much about the structure of the game? Is it going to be same as in past years? If I remember right, they do a fairly straightforward, white versus brown, or however they call it.
Yeah.
Or gold versus brown.
Yeah, no, Craig said it's going to be a full game.
Okay.
It's not the plan isn't to do a running clock or shorter quarters or anything like that. He said, I guess depending on how healthy they are, going into the game and throughout the course of the game. That's obviously the one thing that you need to, that's got to be at the top of their priority list, is getting out of this thing healthy. You come down with a broken ankle or torn ACL, somebody that quickly turns into the story from the spring. So, I don't know. He said it's going to be just a full scale game, 4 quarters. But could that change during the game? It's always possible. But the scrimmage is scheduled to start at 2:00 on Saturday afternoon. Gates are opening at 1:00. They are going to have tailgating this year for anybody who wants to do that. I think the stadium lot is going to open at 10 a.m. And the school announced that they are going to have concessions too. So, they are fully embracing this whole let's get back to normal thing as much as they can. So,
well, I do want to give props to Craig Bowl for doing spring games that are at least digestible, because when I used to cover Mizzou, they would do this weird point system in their spring games where you never knew what the heck was going on, and you never knew who won at the end of the game except by whatever strange formula they had going on. So I appreciate when teams do it straightforward, and a crowd can actually get invested, as opposed to a sack is worth 2 points, and that's why the black team got, like, I don't know. I hated all that whenever, and much less trying to write about it. But I do want to offer some constructive criticism, let's say. They're doing all, like you said, all the tangential parts of the game day atmosphere. There's going to be tailgating. There'll be concessions. Fans are allowed. They don't have to space or mask up. But they are still not allowing photographers other than the one pool photographer, despite the fact that, last I checked, photographers stand on the sidelines with pretty big lenses and pretty far away from everyone. It'd be nice if they would have allowed for that as well. I know it's probably a little late for us to be swinging our Pokescast clout and getting that decision changed, but just wanted to make a quick pitch for transparency, and it'd be nice to, just because we haven't got to shoot them in a long time. So yeah, I think that's the theme of this episode. We also wouldn't have to read the tea leaves on are they BSing about the QB stuff if they would just let Davis watch. So tweet exactly. #let Davis watch. Only Davis at Craig Bull, who is inactive Twitterer.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I don't know why you can have and they're going to have a pool photographer there that's going to supply all of the media with photos. It's like, well, if you can have one photographer down there, what's wrong with having 2 or 3 others? I mean, the football field is 100 yards long.
Pretty big.
They're not going to be clustered together in the back of the end zone. But
are you all allowed in the press box and everything? Or
we're allowed. We'll be in the press box. So I'll be on hand covering it, which is going to be nice. But they're not allowing any media down on the field. So
okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is our spiciest Pokescast yet. We're getting political, folks.
Well, I don't know, man. I'm just hoping. I'm hoping that changes come the first game of the 2021 season.
Yeah, I agree, and fall camp.
Yeah, that too. It's been the last time that I had any face-to-face interaction with any of the coaches or players. I think was Wyoming's Pro Day last year. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Because I remember. Yeah. Because I remember I left town for a trip the day after that, and that was when sort of all hell broke loose. Like the NBA canceled the game and their season, everything. And it was just a domino effect from there. So, yeah, I think that's the last time that we've done any in-person coverage.
Well, and look what happened this year. Nobody gets drafted, so maybe they should have had you around.
Yeah, good point.
You're a good luck charm.
I'm certain that's the reason Wyoming didn't have anybody drafted. Probably didn't have anything to do with the fact that all their seniors came back. But I appreciate the fact that you think I have that much influence.
Oh, well, you were 2 for 2, I think, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Brandon, let's go ahead and get out of here. As always, stay tuned into Trib.com and PokesAuthority.com for all of our coverage. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Pokes Authority. You can follow me on Twitter at Davis E. Potter. You can follow Brandon on Twitter at BFoster91. This podcast is on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and Omni. So be sure to subscribe, download it, give us that 5-star rating. You can also find this podcast on our website at the Pokescast link, which is updated every time a new episode is published. Brandon, appreciate you joining me. Appreciate all of you guys for listening, and we will talk to you again next week.
#let Davis watch.